Hello, and welcome to Based on Facts, where fiction and superstition meet logic and scientific facts, on WELT 95.7 FM, broadcasting from the Allen County Public Library. My name is Chris Rex, and we are going to be asking the question, where are the aliens? Alright. Now, aliens are a topic that's always fascinated me, especially as I was growing up. It was just kind of neat to think about the prospect of, being outside, wandering around on a cloudless night, and all of a sudden having this ship come out of nowhere and abduct you into it, and have these aliens interact with you, maybe even perform experiments with you, and or on you, and then drop you off again. That's always fascinated me for some reason or other. And it's just interesting how many times we've heard stories like this, these alien abductions, and probing and all this other stuff. And yet, with all these stories abound, we really don't have any concrete evidence of any of it actually happening. Okay. It still remains very, very anecdotal at this point. Which is to say that scientifically we have not yet accepted aliens as being a fact. And so we're left with the question, if these incidences are not true, then where are the aliens? And so that's how we've kind of gotten to this topic of extraterrestrial life being very, very, very controversial. Ever since the Roswell reported UFO crash in July 1947, we've wanted to fantasize about these aliens being kept in Area 51, held away from the eyes of the public, and it's just been such a wonderful scenario to think about, the prospect that we are not alone in the universe. But it's just, scientifically speaking, we have not yet gotten to that point where we can say, yes, we are not alone. And so we can kind of explore this entire timeline and scenario and see what are some of the leading thoughts on aliens, and what are some of the ways that we can at least predict their existence in the universe. Okay. And really, a lot of this started back in 1950. Okay, so not long after the purported Roswell crash, we had this physicist named Enrico Fermi. All right, and he decided to design this equation, or this scenario, and he was kind of sitting there thinking to himself, well, if the universe should theoretically be full of these sophisticated races and civilizations, technologically advanced species, then why do we feel so alone? Because otherwise we should be getting and detecting signs of life in the universe even with our telescopes, not even getting to the point of radio listening yet. Just with our telescopes we should be able to see evidence of other alien life in the universe, at least within a range that we can detect. And so he asked this question, and this question was from that point on known as the Fermi paradox. Because it's almost paradoxical to think that there's a lot of life out there, but we just haven't found it yet. Or that we just, haven't detected signs of other alien life in any way, shape, or form for the past, 56 years that we've been doing this. And that's disturbing. Very disturbing. I guess that would be 66 years, actually. Anyway, part of this comes down to kind of what we covered last week. We were mentioning the giant scale of the universe, as well as the giant scale of the atom, the microscopic scale of the atom. And so a lot of this comes down to that whole aspect there. The fact that in space there's a lot of what we call or consider empty space, right? So we kind of brought up the example, hey, if you make the sun the same size as a nucleus, Pluto is as far away from the sun as an electron is far away from nucleus of an atom. And that just helps you understand the scale that we're talking about. Okay, that's an incredible amount of empty space. That's an incredible distance to cover. And then we said that once you get that distance, you go another one of those distances away. Okay, so literally double that distance. Okay, not just, 2 billion miles to 4 billion miles. I'm talking 2 billion miles to 2 billion miles away. Okay, whole lot of empty space. And that's the distance between different solar systems, different galaxies, all that stuff. That's the distances that we operate on those larger scales. So it's really hard for our brains to wrap around exactly what scale we're talking about here. But we are talking about many, many light years worth of traveling just to explore our local interstellar neighborhood. Okay, much less anything outside of our galaxy. All right, it takes a long time. And so for us to really receive signals, or even give our signals to neighboring civilizations, is going to take a long time. Okay, provided that they're traveling at the speed of light. Okay, it's going to take a long time. Anyway, the next kind of stage here that we're going to talk about in talking about aliens is Frank Drake. All right, now he actually kind of spearheaded the movement to start aiming our telescopes in a way that detects extraterrestrial life. All right, and he did this in 1960, so we could try to see if we can get any signals from space that were not natural. Okay, now obviously that takes some time to develop even what is considered to be natural on the big scheme of things out in outer space. What is just a star pulsing its beams of communication? What is a black hole pulsing its beams of communication? Because each of those things do emit some sort of radio signal when they do various activities. And so we have to try to figure out those background kind of situations and remove them from the equation before we can go on to determine, oh yeah, well this signal is from intelligent life. We have to establish that baseline of, oh well, this is all of what we would expect to hear with these radio telescopes, but this signal is intelligent because it is it's got qualities and characteristics that the other background signals do not have. Okay, so we had to establish that, and we started doing that in 1960. All right. Now, unfortunately, we haven't really gotten anything substantial since then. I mean, there was this one incidence of a wow signal at one point, but those never really followed up. There was a suspicious signal, but it disappeared. And the hallmark trait of an intelligent civilization is that signal is persistent and it has certain qualities that indicate intelligence. Okay, and that particular signal was not. That has yet to be replicated since it was detected. So we're just kind of ignoring the wow signal because followed up on it and it really didn't go anywhere. So we have had no solid signals that indicate that there are other intelligent civilizations out there. Now, like I said, we haven't been listening very long. Since 1960, we've been listening to outer space and we haven't gotten anywhere. And actually, there's a very, very nice institute called SETI. It's the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. These guys have been listening hardcore hitting it great, and you know what? We still haven't found anything. And this Frank Drake actually works at SETI now, here in the U.S. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, Drake went on to the following year in 1961. He went on to develop an equation that ended up being called the Drake equation. Okay, it's not like he intended on it being called that. It's just that's what scientists do. If you develop an equation, we kind of need a name for the equation, so we end up calling it the Drake equation. And this was kind of his way to estimate how many different civilizations, intelligent civilizations, should be out there in the universe. Okay, and so we can kind of break this down into a bunch of different variables. He actually utilized 7 different variables being multiplied together to end up with this grand total, which is a number of intelligent civilizations here in the Milky Way. First variable was R. This basically accounted for the rate of the formation of stars in the Milky Way galaxy that are suitable for intelligent life to evolve. Okay. Now this is because you do need stars with certain characteristics in order to really be the best for intelligent life, for life in general, but for really intelligent life to evolve. So that was kind of the first part of the equation there. It's just establishing, okay, the stars. Boom. Then we had to establish the fraction of those stars that had planetary systems. Okay, not all stars have planetary systems. You know, and honestly, there may be some stars that that have planets. It's just the planets are not rocky planets. And really, for intelligent life, you kind of need a rocky planet. There have been some other thoughts about this, that we can have gas giants developing life. It's just, it seems that it might be too much of a caustic environment to develop intelligent life. So rocky planets seem to be a little bit more stable with that respect. So we're really kind of looking for rocky planets there. Now, we have to also look for the number of planets per solar system, per planetary solar system, that are suitable for life. Okay, so we can have rocky planets, but they're not always suitable for life. This is what helps get at that particular part of the equation. And that was represented by an N with a subscript E. Sorry, the fraction of stars with planetary systems, that was actually a lowercase f with a subscript P. Next part of the equation is a lowercase f with a lowercase l subscript. And that is the fraction of planets that actually can result in intelligent life evolving there. Okay, so that's kind of why it's f lowercase l, just because of the fact that we're talking about life evolving there. Next one, oh, I'm sorry, I did misstate that. That was just talking about life evolving. The next part of the equation, f subscript I, actually talks about the fraction of those planets that do evolve intelligent life. So we have the fraction that develop life, fraction that develops intelligent life. My apologies. Then we have f subscript E, which basically talks about how many of these intelligent beings develop technology that's significant enough that we can detect them existing in the universe or in the galaxy, as the case would be. Okay, so not all intelligent life reaches the point where it can actually start emitting and detecting signals from space. So we are past that point. So that's great. Hooray for us. The final part of the equation is a capital L, and that accounts for the length of time that those civilizations are releasing those signals into space. Okay. There are multiple reasons why a civilization may fail or die away. Obviously, we've very nearly destroyed ourselves on a number of occasions, just through world wars, nuclear bombs. You know, we're currently in this battle with global climate change that, I don't know, we may or may not win, not sure. And then there's, of course, always a possibility of, you know, an asteroid or something coming in, smashing into the planet and sterilizing us as it is. Actually, while I'm thinking about it, you could also have a gamma ray burst event from a black hole many light years away that ends up sweeping across the planet and sterilizing all life that way, because it's essentially a great laser in space. But I digress. There are a number of different ways that life can fail on this planet. It has almost failed and been extinguished many times in the past. Okay, I'm trying to think here. For amidst the 6th great extinction with human activity, we have experienced 5 prior mass extinction events on this planet. Okay, and life has survived, but just barely. Okay, so to think that we are causing the next extinction level event is humbling. All right, I hate that we are the cause of this, but the question is whether we can come to terms with it and try to minimize our impact as much as possible in order to achieve some sort of equitable equilibrium with this planet. So that's really the question that they're posing for ourselves right now. Anyway, through all these different trials, okay, through trying to get to a planet that supports life, that supports intelligent life, that life develops technology that actually results in them sending signals out into space so that other civilizations can detect them. All these different steps in the process. Through all that, we can plug in hypothetical figures here, end up with a lower limit, okay, bare minimum value of 20 different civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy. Okay, if we plug in minimum values, minimum estimates for all those variables, we end up with a number around 20. Okay, so if that's the case, and if we are one of 20 intelligent living beings with significant technology in the entire Milky Way galaxy, then yes, we are going to feel like we are very, very, very alone in the universe. Now, if we look at the other end of the spectrum, we plug in kind of average values for all these figures, then we end up with a number around 100,000 different intelligent civilizations in the galaxy, Milky Way galaxy. I'm sorry. So, at that number, then you're like, well, if there are really 100,000 other civilizations, we should know about it by now. But I don't know. Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. It's just with so much empty space, like I was saying before, to cover such distances, it takes a long time. And to think that we've only been receiving and sending signals for 66 years, it's difficult for us to say that within 66 light years there's no life. But beyond that, we know nothing. We literally know nothing. And even inside of that, we're not scanning each part of the night sky for signals. All of those different parts of the sky have to be looked at in order for us to listen to that particular part. Okay, so we very well may have signals coming at us and hitting the planet Earth that are from an intelligent origin. It's just that we don't have the satellite receiving power to get those signals. Okay. Now, fortunately enough, the world does spin around on its axis. So we do have a number of laboratories around the world that are able to eventually sample a single point in space. That's just, there are so many points in space. And the fact that you have to be kind of listening in on the right moment that that one signal is coming in order to understand that hey, that's an intelligent civilization that is emitting some sort of signal that we can detect. So we have to be aware of that little nuance, that not only do they have to be emitting, but we have to be listening at the same time. And by same time, I really mean within some level of time that is light years, on the scale of light years. Okay. So, needless to say, it's going to take us a while to detect other life forms, because basically through all these equations, life in the universe is guaranteed. Okay, I don't think that's stressed enough. You know, when people talk about intelligent life, they either kind of say it jokingly, or they talk about aliens. All right, but intelligent life in the universe is guaranteed. Okay, guaranteed to happen a number of times. Okay, now we were talking about the minimum estimate being 20 within our Milky Way galaxy. Well, there are many galaxies beyond that. Okay, our Milky Way galaxy is only one of 100 billion galaxies in the universe. So it basically means that there are an estimated, with those numbers, there are an estimated 2 trillion other forms of life out there in the universe. 2 trillion. And that is the lower bound of all of our estimates here. Okay. So that's pretty crazy to think about. Now, I have seen some revisions to this equation, trying to use more updated kinds of values for all these different parts of the equation, for the Drake equation. And I've seen those produce numbers around the order of 1 times 10 to the negative 4. Okay. Which is basically, say, 1/10,000th of a chance of life developing in the Milky Way galaxy, other than ours. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Even if we have to draw a decimal point and 4 zeros and a 1, or 3 zeros and a 1, even if we have to do that, I'm okay with that. Okay? Because even with that small number, saying that there's basically no other life in this Milky Way galaxy, we multiply that by a very large number, the 100 billion galaxies that are actually out there. And so you still end up with, even with this modified equation, okay, you still end up with a number that's not 100 billion, okay, but it's still 10 million different forms of intelligent life out there in the whole universe. So 10 million different life forms. That is absolutely incredible to think about. It just boggles the mind if that's really true. You know, we tend to think that we're so special and we're so unique, and life forms are special and they are unique, yes, in their own ways. Okay, we are not unique in the entire universe. There are likely at least 10 million other life forms in the universe as well. Okay, and that's with a conservative estimate. So yeah, I admit it's a little disappointing we don't see signs of those other forms of life. Maybe they've been extinguished. Maybe we just haven't been able to receive the signals from those civilizations. They're so far away from us. It takes so long for their signals to reach us. And you know, just thinking about how long it's going to take other civilizations to receive our signal. You know, right now, our signals have only been traveling probably about 60 years or so. Maybe a little bit longer, because we've been emitting radio signals for a while. So let's say 100 years. Nice round estimate there. So yeah, our signals have only gone out 100 years. We've been receiving signals for 66. Okay, so we can't even receive a signal from the civilizations that have, if any civilizations have received our signal and have tried to transmit a signal back. Okay. So if we are in a situation where our signals are, separated by 100 years, well, we could be waiting a long time until we hear something back. Okay. Say a civilization just now receives our signal, could be another 100 years on top of that for them to send a signal back at us. Okay. So it's just the latency time is on the order of a lot of time, a lot of years, just for those signals to travel through space. Okay. And that sucks. I hate that. Like, we're sitting here and struggling with just the notion of sending teams to Mars because of the latency in time, because of how far Mars is. It's just insane to think about. I mean, I can't even remember how big the latency time is from here to Mars. I just know it's a long time. Okay, makes dial-up look fast. Okay, because then at least you're getting some data at all times. Whereas with Mars, I don't know, we have to wait a couple hours to get a signal. Okay, and by that point, maybe too late. And that's scary to think about for when we're going to go to Mars and colonize it and start sending people out there. It's terrifying to think that everything could be over by the time we know about it. Anyway, getting back to kind of the time scale here, we had the Drake equation in 1961. That was very awesome. Allowed us to start estimating how much life is out there. 1964, we had another kind of thing following up from this, to where we had this astronomer Nikolai Kardashev. Okay, he was Russian, and he developed this very nice scale for civilizations based on how they utilized energy on a cosmic scale. And we call this the Kardashev scale. Now, this kind of broke it down into 3 different types of civilizations, or 3 different stages in a civilization's development. Type 1 was just getting to the point where you utilize all of your planetary resources and can generate a mass amount of energy just from that one planet. And when we are looked at, as far as how far we've come along in human civilization, we're probably around a 0.72. Okay. And that is to say that we are still about a quarter of the way until we finally reach that type 1 status. And that really comes down to the fact that we're just beginning, really in just the past 10 years, 10, 20 years, really just beginning to get into renewable resources for energy, harvesting solar power, wind power, things of that nature. And we have yet to figure out how to do fusion energy types of reactions and to harvest those vast amounts of energy by taking 2 atoms and fusing them together, just like what happens in a star. We can't do that controllably in the lab yet. Okay, even though you could look at the movie Chain Reaction with Keanu Reeves. They attempted it in that, and that kind of gets at how unstable this process can be, because that's what fusion is. It's initiating a chain reaction that can produce vast amounts of power. We have only harvested fission power, which is breaking atoms apart. When we talk about what is an atomic explosion, that's just a fission reaction. Okay, we're just breaking apart an atom, whether it be plutonium or whatever. We're literally breaking apart atoms, and the energy released from that is what's causing the explosion. Here, we would be doing kind of akin to what the sun does. In fact, we'd probably do it in the exact same way as the sun, just because hydrogen is so readily available as a fuel source. at least compared to plutonium, that is. So we would basically take hydrogen, just like what the sun does, two hydrogen atoms, combine them together to form helium. We would fuse the atoms together, and in that process it would release a huge amount of energy. And that's what powers the sun. And that's why it's so dangerous to mess with fusion energy. Because even if we did that at the smallest scale, it would produce so much energy that would likely destroy whatever is containing it. Whatever container we're performing this reaction in, it may destroy the container. And maybe some of the area around the container. So it's very, very dangerous stuff to mess with. And that's part of why we have yet to figure out how to control these types of reactions. To have containment fields in place, magnetic fields, whatever. We just haven't gotten to that point. And it sucks. I hate that. But there it is. So that's why we're not yet a type 1 civilization, because we have yet to master everything that we could possibly do on this planet. Going to the type 2 stage, however, we have the point that we have utilized all the energy on the planet. Now we are going outside of the planet and utilizing all the energy in our solar system. So basically going to each planet, utilizing all the energy resources we can from each planet. And that could even include the sun. Some people include the sun in that equation just because the sun produces so much energy. It's really handy to try to capture as much of that energy as possible. So we could even include that. Boom, we're at type 2. Alright. Now it may take us another couple hundred years to reach type 1, and beyond that it could take another couple thousand years in order to reach that type 2. Type 3, on the other hand, is where we go beyond our solar system, utilizing the power in every solar system in the whole galaxy. So type 3 is basically harvesting and utilizing all energy in the entire galaxy. So that would be the Milky Way stage, essentially, for us. That's going to take a long time for us to do. Okay, not on the order of years or thousands of years. That's going to be probably about 1 million years to reach that stage. Okay, that's a lot of time and effort going to every single solar system, assimilating all the energy that you can, and moving on to the next one. Okay, that's really the planet killer stage. Okay, or star killer base kind of thing if you watch Star Wars. So that's really the terrifying stage. Okay, if we come across a type 3 other intelligent civilization, we're probably just next on the dinner menu. Okay, there won't be any sort of fight being put up by us that would be even remotely worthy of a battle. Okay, we're talking like Death Star type of stuff. Okay, where they aim, point, and shoot, and we're done. They just come up and mop up the leftovers. Okay, not even a fight. So that's one of the reasons why people have been kind of careful about how we approach this whole alien situation. Just because aliens may be peaceful, or they may be warlike. They may be conquerors. Many of the first explorers, who were called explorers, weren't really explorers. They were conquerors. Okay, we could even talk about people like Christopher Columbus. Okay, he was a great explorer. He was the first that was really considered to have found America. Okay, now there's some debate with that. We're not going to get into that. But yeah, Columbus in America. Boom. Started some nice colonies. But there wasn't a whole lot of exploring going on. Okay, it was really focused on conquering. Okay, We were conquering the Native Americans and taking their land and taking their resources. There wasn't much of a discussion involved, okay? Because the colonists were there to stay, they were there to expand, and they were there to take over as much as they could. So, running into another alien species that is kind of acting like a bunch of pilgrims would not end well for us. And even the physicist, famous astrophysicist and cosmologist Stephen Hawking recognizes this. And he urges caution when it comes to dealing with alien species. Because, comparatively speaking, we are ants at the cosmic scale. Okay? We are ants that have barely left this planet. So what hope do we have defending ourselves from a species that goes from planet to planet, colonizing it, and utilizing all the resources? So really, even if we came across a Type 2 species or civilization, we would be in a world of trouble. Because they very well could just come here and be like, hey, you guys have made a nice place. How kind of you. We're just going to take over from here. So that's where you can inject certain War of the Worlds kinds of references, you know, things like that, to where aliens come in, destroy all human life, and take over for themselves. Okay. So that's a very likely scenario, unfortunately. You know, if you look at the state of the Native Americans right now, you know, they're up there fighting for their water supplies right now. They have an oil pipeline that's trying to be put in, that's going to go right through, or right next to one of their giant water supplies for the reservation, and they're not really going to stand for that, just because they know that these pipelines have a history of breaking at some point and leaking oil everywhere. And if this oil gets into their water and taints it, what are they going to drink? Okay, they're going to be as worse off as Flint. But Flint actually got help because it was a real town. Indian reservation? I'm sorry, not many people care about those. And they should. Okay. And so I think it's great that we're seeing some sort of involvement with the community to help these people, help these Native Americans in their plight with the pipeline, and try to make sure that the government and that the people constructing the pipeline, that everybody's in accordance with the law, they're following rules and procedures, because the Native Americans seem to think that they've been slighted, okay, that there's been some procedures that have been kind of not followed or kind of slacked on, that they weren't consulted enough. And so they're really hoping that things slow down, so we can start talking about this situation. Because the Native Americans kind of find it ironic that the pipeline has been redirected to go through the reservation as a direct result of concerned residences in another town, causing such an uproar, and refusing to have their water polluted, that they end up going through the reservation water. And I'm sorry, that's really unfortunate if that's the case. You know, and that's just comes down to the fact that Native Americans have always received the short end of the stick, historically here in America. And it's really hard to change that. I hate that, but we don't want to become like them, okay? We really don't want to do the same types of horrific things that we have done to the Native Americans. We don't want to have to do that to another species, much less do it anymore to our own species. So I hope that we have the sense to do that. But what we really don't want is another intelligent form of life to come in and treat us like that. So that's the concern with announcing our presence to the universe via radio signals for the past, 100 years or so. So, I don't know. we'll see where that goes. Anyway, fast forward a couple decades here. We end up in 1998, where we have this economist, Robin Hanson, writing an essay called The Great Filter. Are we almost past it? And here he's kind of getting at some of these previous types that we mentioned on the Kardashev scale, the type 1, 2, and 3 civilizations. But he really is kind of getting at the point that there are many stages in evolution. Okay, many stages in our evolution here on this planet. And we had to make it through each stage or each trial in order to make it to where we are today. Okay, you know, evolution is so unpredictable that you cannot possibly predict the trajectory that life on a planet will go. It's impossible. And part of that comes down to the fact that you don't know which trials those life forms are going to face and how they're going to face them. So here on this planet I just mentioned, we've survived 5 different extinctions. Okay. Some of those extinctions have reduced the life on this planet by 95%. Okay. Just think about that. If 95% of all life forms on this planet were all of a sudden extinguished, my gosh, there is hardly anything left. Be a miracle for the planet to recover from that kind of event. I mean, that was one of the events that we're thinking, well, maybe there was a gamma ray burster that cleansed this planet, that just kind of swathed across this planet and just sterilized the thing. Just about sterilized the thing. Okay? Because that's a whole lot of destruction and death. Whole lot. So we're thinking that we're lucky as heck to be here right now. And that throughout this entire process, we have to keep in mind this random factor, that is these disasters, extinction level events. All this stuff has to be accounted for, because those are essentially filters or barriers that life must get across in order to get to the point of an intelligent civilization. Now, these weren't really included explicitly in the Drake equation, but they're kind of assumed, so to speak. Okay, so we assume that life has to get past some sort of barrier or many barriers in order to reach its next stage in development. And so we can think about some of these different stages or filters that we have to get past, like, well, we have to survive the asteroids, like I mentioned, because they've definitely hit this planet a few times and destroyed a whole lot of life. You know, we even talk about the dinosaurs. You know, we would not be here as dominant life forms on this planet as mammals without the dinosaurs having to die. Okay, the dinosaurs reigned supreme for a reason. Okay, they were giant. They had a whole lot of power that mammals could not even remotely try to touch. Okay, mammals at that time were rodents at the time of dinosaurs. And so once all the large life forms on the planet died, likely from an asteroid, that's when mammals were able to stand up and become the dominant life forms on the planet. You know, we could even think about the moon. The moon has been a great saving grace for us because it's basically been an asteroid magnet. All right, so that's been awesome. Jupiter is another one. Without Jupiter, we would have had a lot more asteroids come at us. It's another asteroid magnet. You know, just add another a factor of 10 of mass to Jupiter, and that thing could ignite. All right, something like that. I know it's not a whole lot more mass to Jupiter, and that thing would ignite and become a secondary star. That's really cool. We could also think about just the temperature on this planet, right? So that's where we come to terms like the Goldilocks zone. Okay, trying to look at where a planet should be relative to its sun in order to really be held around the favorable temperatures for life. to evolve. Additionally, it's nice to have an atmosphere. Okay, kind of needs something to breathe. So that's where you have to have enough mass to retain an atmosphere of any kind. And what helps that is having an active core, a nice liquid core of molten material that's moving around and generating a magnetic field. That creates literally a magnetic shield around this planet, helping maintain the atmosphere, but also shielding the life forms from very dangerous rays from the sun. Okay, so that's awesome too. Now obviously on this planet and in the atmosphere, you have to have the right types of chemicals present. We need some sort of backbone for life, whether that be carbon or silicon. You need something to breathe, which our particular planet is accomplished through oxygen. Okay. We also have CO2 being utilized by the photosynthesizers. So those seem to really be the two key gases for life forms on this planet. Once you form that life, with all those other previous conditions met, so you've made it through all those different filters, all those different barriers, then you can finally form life. Life starts out being unicellular, or just a single cell, and it starts learning to work with other cells, and learning that cooperation enables it to do different things, to fill different niches. Okay? It doesn't per se make it better, because in the living world, different is better when it comes to niches. Okay? And niche is basically a certain job or role of an organism in its environment. So if we have a bunch of little cells running around doing their thing, but then all of a sudden we have a couple cells working together to accomplish a singular goal, well, those cells working together kind of make it bigger. And being bigger is kind of nice, because then you can actually start consuming smaller things. Maybe you don't have to work to create your own energy. Maybe you can just consume energy from other organisms. So we kind of see a step between photosynthetic organisms that derive all their energy from the sun, or chemosynthetic organisms which derive them from the bottom of the sea. I'm going to ignore those guys for now. Photosynthetic organisms deriving energy from the sun. Then you have these organisms that actually eat other organisms. Okay, so they're what we call heterotrophic organisms, as opposed to the autotrophic organisms that create their own energy. And that's where we have animals coming into play. Animals eat other animals. Once we achieve that level of complexity with a multicellular organism, a bunch of different cells working together for a similar goal, that's where we can start to see a need to diversify. And that's where we have sexual reproduction coming into play, because that really introduces a level of complexity far beyond anything that we can achieve just with a single cell cloning itself. We need to introduce new genetic material. We need to shuffle around the current genetic material in ways that produces novel traits that can allow us to diversify into even more niches in the environment, thereby perpetuating life as we know it. That's at the point where we can start developing some level of intelligence, and even a high level of intelligence if given the right conditions, right? So if great apes in Africa weren't presented with an opportunity to diversify and become these bipedal organisms without hair that chase down their prey, if we didn't have the opportunity, we wouldn't even be here. Okay, we'd still be apes. All right, but we were given that opportunity. That niche was there for us, and so we diversified into that niche. But once again, we had to be given the opportunity to do that. Once we finally reach that level of developing or evolving into humans, that's where we can start to see the stages that we're at right now. Okay, where we have colonized the whole planet. That's great. But then we have to go out and colonize other planets. Okay. And in the process, we have to try not to destroy ourselves through war, nuclear bombs, global climate change. We have to try not to destroy ourselves in the process that we're at right now. So the question that this economist, was trying to ask in this essay in 1998, he was trying to ask, the Great Barrier, are we past it? Is the worst behind us? Is the hardest part just getting to this stage of being intelligent life that has colonized the whole planet? Has this been the hardest task? Or is our hardest task yet before us? To survive to that stage where we colonize other planets and colonize other solar systems. Where's the difficult part at? That's really what he was asking in this essay. It's a great question. Where is the difficult part? Because I don't know. Just May of this year, we had a new development along these lines. There was this paper published in the May 2016 issue of Astrobiology by Frank and Sullivan. And the title of that paper was A New Empirical Constraint on the Prevalence of Technological Species in the Universe. And they kind of looked at, the chances of life developing, but they kind of threw out the part of the Drake equation that dealt with how long a species has existed or will exist if it actually develops into intelligent life. So doing away with that constraint on the equation kind of freed them up a little bit. And they came up with this number that, well, we have the chances of intelligent life developing on a planet or evolving on a planet as being 1 in 10 billion. Okay, so we can have 10 billion planets, and life, intelligent life, will only develop on one of those planets out of that 10 billion. If that's the case, then that would mean that there are 1 trillion other intelligent civilizations out there in the universe. 1 trillion. So that's a little higher than kind of some of the estimates we had before, where we were saying, well, plugging average values into this equation results in 100 million different civilizations. This is another order of magnitude above that. This is 1 trillion with this new equation, just this year. So that's really pretty stunning to me, to know that all these different figures are kind of pointing in the similar direction. Okay, that no matter what, no matter how we cut it, there should be intelligent life out there. We just so happen to not have contacted any of them. Now, if we look at kind of the scale of the universe, like we were looking at in the last episode here, let's just say that we can put kind of a lower bound on the chances for intelligent life. Now, we looked at it as far as our galaxy. We said that on the lowest minimum values for the Drake equation, we'd have 20 civilizations in the Milky Way. Okay. Just to give you an idea of how small of a number we can go, we looked at a revised Drake equation that said that we could be 0.0001 as a probability for life developing in this galaxy. And yet we'd still have 10 million different life forms in the universe. We can go down all the way to a number that is 24 zeros after the decimal point. Or 23 zeros, I should say. 23 zeros after the decimal point. That's how low we can go to say that we are unique in this universe. So we're talking 19 more orders of magnitude below our lowest estimates. to say that we are the only life form in the entire universe. That's ridiculous to think of. No number is ever going to be produced that's that small. Okay? That's just not possible. So that's why we assert that intelligent life exists, because it is guaranteed by all these equations. Okay? It's just, it seems inevitable given the right conditions and the right time. And you know what? Even if it's a 1 in 10 billion chance, there are still a whole lot of life forms out there. Whole lot of life forms out there. Okay? So, there you go. That's kind of an introduction to the field of extraterrestrial archaeology. Just to kind of get at how fascinating it is to think about aliens existing in the universe and the chances that we'll actually end up communicating with these aliens, and being able to detect their existence, and maybe they can detect our existence, because we are not alone in this universe. That is just a mathematical impossibility, given our best equations at this time. And so that's why it's great to assert, hey, aliens exist. We just haven't found them yet. That's it. And that's why it's kind of difficult sometimes to kind of marry this idea with, these UFO conspiracy theorists that assert that UFOs exist, that aliens exist. Really hard to kind of compromise between those two opposing forces. And we can certainly look at that on another episode. So, thank you for joining me this week on Based on Facts. My name is Chris Rex. If you'd like to look up any of our episodes, you can find us on YouTube and on Facebook just by typing in Based on Facts into the search bar. So, thank you so much for joining me this week, and have a great one.